Okay. Jennifer's not going to be here. She's out of town. We certainly have a forum. Certainly welcome everybody here and the guests we have with us tonight. What's your pleasure on the minutes? Gotta echo back. Don't have any revisions. I'll make a motion to approve. Motion been made to approve.
Second.
Did you get both those, Roy, and 3 or 4 seconds?
Were you second, I'm sorry?
Huh?
Yeah. Sure, about 3 of us did, so.
Any more discussion on the motion of acceptance? Not all in favor, accepting the minutes as received, make a note by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign, motion carries. All right, I can't think of anything old business right now. We're moving on to new business. Public hearing for a special exception request for a dog kennel for Mr. Jordan. Is Michael gonna speak or you gonna speak?
I'm
Glad
happy
to
to
have you,
introduce
Mike.
it. Good evening. So the applicant for this application is Andrew Jordan, requesting a special exception permit to operate a dog kennel use at property located at 24950 West Soapstone Road, identified as tax map 38-13A on the Amelia County Real Property Identification Map. And the dog kennel use is permitted by special exception in the A5 Agriculture District per section 325-6.3 of the county's zoning ordinance. So same format as our other staff reports. The property is currently zoned A5. We've provided the purpose and intent of the A5 zoning district, the definition for kennel, which includes a place designed to house, board, breed, handle, or otherwise keep or care for dogs 4 months old or older, for sale or in return for compensation, and which requires a business license to be obtained. Individuals that have 3 or fewer litters per year may operate under the home occupation use. Provided the setbacks in the A5 district, as well as other dimensional requirements. We've also provided the comprehensive plan section. This area is designated as rural preservation area. Let's see, provided for you the special exception permit criteria and standards. Then our recommendation was that the dog kennel use on the subject property is permitted, to ensure that the use as proposed to be located is not in conflict with the comprehensive plan or the statement of intent for the A5 zoning district, and that the public health, safety, and general welfare will not be adversely affected, and that necessary safeguards will be provided for the protection of surrounding property, persons, and neighborhood values. Staff would recommend that the Planning Commission consider the following conditions if issuing a recommendation of approval. 1, as approved, the operation of a kennel is expected to include should be one or more of the following commercial activities: housing and boarding of dogs, breeding and sale of dogs, keeping and care of dogs, and handling and training of dogs. And that 2, structures, buildings, and active components such as fenced areas associated with the kennel use shall comply with the following setbacks from property lines: 100 feet from front property lines, 100 feet from side property lines, and 100 feet from rear property lines. So we provided 3 options: recommend approval with conditions, option 2, deferral of the application, and option 3, denial of the application or recommendation of denial. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions for Michael before we open the public hearing? Any questions for Michael before we open the public hearing? Hearing none, I'll open the public hearing. Anyone like to speak for or against the special exemption permit for Mr. Jordan on a dog kennel permit? Please come forward and speak.
I just thought I'd step forward. I'm Andrew Jordan, who put in for the special exception permit and didn't know if you had any questions for me. Uh,
Any questions for Mr. Jordan?
How many dogs do you expect to have?
uh, I don't know, like, I don't want to restrict it and say like 3 dogs and then say I get 5 dogs, but I know neither of us want to have 100 dogs either, so I don't know, where do you draw the line? It's hard to say. Uh, I'm I'm open to you drawing a line on how many dogs is too many dogs too, so.
Do you know what state regulations might be as far as dog kennels, as far as how many dogs? I mean, you're not starting a puppy mill.
No, the dogs that we breed, we do AKC hunt tests and UKC hunt tests, like the retrievers. And, I get help in training starting out, then I finish them up and run the hunt test with them. We do all the health clearances and all that with our dogs. They're kind of on the higher end scale. When I talk to my neighbors about it, they're kind of in shock with, these dogs. So they're just used to a hunting dog. So, but I didn't want to restrict myself from if I decided to board a couple dogs or if I was breeding, a couple dogs or training some dogs, because, I could, in theory, do each one with a dog kennel license. But, I didn't know what all to put in there and keep myself from being in a corner.
So you have checked with your neighbors?
We have actually talked to one just before we left, wants to borrow my trailer, and he said he doesn't care what we're doing, but Mike and Mary Webb, they're on the other side of the creek from us, and we've talked to the ones on our side of the road and our side of the creek that we split the parcel when I bought the land, and they seem fine with it. And the ones across the street, the Stubbs seemed okay with it, and I think he sent some formal letters out also. So
This is a 100-acre tract, as I
right,
heard that.
101.14.
How big of a kennel you plan on building? You got any dimensions or any plans about size or anything yet?
I mean, we have a barn right now that we store hay in for the horses and goats and stuff. That's 40 by 48. That seems like a lot of dogs if I was filling that thing up for us anyways. We work full time, so I just didn't want to, say I would only have 3 breeding dogs or something, if I had 4 or whatever it was. Right now I have uh I guess technically 2 breeding females. Well, one's 9 months old, but she's going up through training right now, and we have her mom also, and we have a Wreck-It Ralph that you've probably met at Ashley's office that got crippled from the first vaccine he had, and we have his dad too. So, but anyways, that's in a nutshell, I guess.
Any more questions, Mr. Jordan?
I guess one of like the main concerns is like, do they bark a lot at night or anything like that? Or,
They're usually sleeping at night. We've got a climate controlled shed, or I guess you call it dog kennel sort of deal.
Mhm.
And they're mostly inside being lazy bums. They, come outside when we go to feed them, and, or in the morning or whatever.
Any more questions, Mr. Jordan? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anyone else like to speak for or against? Say you had a letter. Did anybody else send anything in, or anybody on the screen talking? Well, don't see any, we'll close the public hearing. Thank you. What's your pleasure? Seen packet that came with it, Mr. Jordan filled out. Question or comment?
That's fall in line with the comprehensive plan. They give it here. And so I don't see, the neighbors don't seem fine with it. It's not like it's on a 5 acre lot either. I make a motion to approve it.
Motion been made by Easter. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Oh, we got all kinds of seconds. Ramsey was one of them.
Me first.
Any more discussion on accepting and passing on the board of supervisor? Any more discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of passing it, recommending it with the conditions we have? Board of supervisors make a note by saying aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 100%. Mr. Jordan, you'll come before the board of supervisors the third Wednesday of May. No, not May, April.
April.
This is March. Yeah, it'll be April. So I didn't think it gotten that far along. All right. Next thing is zoning committee update. You should have that in your packet.
I still not been seeing it. Oh, yes, it is. And
Get on all the way in the back, last 2 pages, I believe. We met. This was the Friday meeting, 14th or 19th. I don't know, we had a lot of meetings the last 2 weeks, I know that. This was a Friday meeting when the zone committee met. Michael was on there. And kind of brought us up to date on a few things as to what this attached dwelling. And we kind of went off, if you remember the book we had last month, all that information, but it was a tab in there. It had kind of regulations they were recommended. And we went down that to kind of come up with some, one was owner occupancy requirement. Homeowners should be certainly living in one of the houses. Parking requirements, depends on where it is. If it was a short-term rental or not, occupancy income limit, a maximum rent, setbacks, unit size limit, medium size lot, and impact fees. And some of them we didn't think really pertain to us with this kind of list we went down. Does anyone reviewing them have any questions about any of them? I guess so Michael can bring us up to date or have certainly answer it.
Yeah, I'm happy to run through the recommendations that you all came up with.
That would probably help.
Yeah,
Bring up some
so
questions or comments.
yeah, the things you all focused on, and essentially one of the things we would propose to do is that the terminology and definitions change. That right now you refer to them as detached dwelling units. What we would suggest is that you change that to accessory dwelling units, that there be a clear definition for them. Right now, there's not really a definition for what constitutes a detached dwelling unit. You can get there because you rely on the definition of dwelling unit, but most commonly, everyone is beginning to use the term accessory dwelling unit. So the subcommittee was focused on owner occupancy, requiring at least the property owner to either reside in the principal dwelling or the detached dwelling unit, the accessory dwelling unit. That there be a minimum requirement of one parking space, off-street parking space associated with the detached dwelling unit. That they be required to meet the same setbacks as a principal structure. That there be limits on the number of bedrooms, for instance, 2-bedroom maximum. That the floor area of the detached dwelling unit be no more than 50% of the floor area of the principal dwelling. That you require detached dwelling units to be located on lots at least twice the minimum lot size of the zoning district, and/or that you establish density limits for all of the zoning districts based on their minimum lot sizes. Right now, that's not the case. It's kind of, it works out that way by the minimum lot sizes, but you probably would want to put a maximum density in there as well for all of those districts. And that there be a requirement that the detached dwelling have separate wastewater and water well services from the principal dwelling. So those are the main items. And, I think moving forward, it's something where presumably you all would make a recommendation back to the Board of Supervisors. You all could initiate an amendment by motion. The Board of Supervisors could consider it initiate an amendment by resolution. You all could meet jointly, conduct a joint public hearing. It just depends on how quickly you all want to put these changes in place.
That second one on the density limit set was, instead of putting in there no cluster developments or subdivisions, because they would be fully densified right now. Instead of specifying that, we went to the density. And then we were going to change all the zoning so that it reflected type of thing. Right now, I think a couple of those that specify. So that's what he was bringing out as far as units. Any more questions or comments?
I have a question about the primary use of an accessory dwelling is for usually parents. And there's several things about that. One of the things is you want it to be as an accessory to the primary residence. You want it to be fairly close because if you can use as you can envision, let's say, elderly couple, they want to be fairly close to the family so that they can check on them, or if they're ambulatory, so they can walk over and say to have supper in primary residence. But if somebody's not ambulatory, well, then you won't be able to do it the other way. So you want it reasonably close. You don't want something large, something that requires more upkeep and so forth for elderly people. But the requirement here of the utilities to have separate well and drain field is I think it adds extra expense to people in putting these in. In other words, that's a pretty good chunk right there to have well and septic system. Now, if it's determined that it's inadequate, a line or even two lines can be added to the existing drain field. And that will, uh, take care of it. So, I think that the other thing is this. I understand, and I had a discussion with the board. I understand, you know, that down the road, that they could do other things with it if you make it so it can be a separate lot. But we already have family cuts, and we have pretty liberal family cut policy. And so I think this is in the category that as our staff here has said, it really needs to be called accessory. And so something that's accessory should be accessory to the primary residence. Also, you know, the buildings can be done so they can be repurposed down the road for workshops or offices or we had one that came here that was planning on being a garage. And so they can be repurposed. Also, it's possible that in some cases, that when it's no longer needed, and at that point, the family may be far enough along that the people in the primary residence would be glad to have a smaller structure and let their children and grandchildren occupy the residence. So it still is meeting that purpose.
Thank you. Want any more comments? We were just kind of think down the road, you know, trailer you can move, and a house you can't. Of course, if you go like that, if it's just all one family, why don't they do a family cut? Instead of even trying to come to a ADU. But we're trying to get it cleaned up as much as possible because we don't know what'll come. And the staff has made comments to me that a lot of times it's not so much to bring their parents in as to have a place for a child, for some reason, one way or the other. Whether it's a starter home or an infant child or something like that. And really the distance between them most of the time is max about 40 feet or minimum 40 feet total. So that's pretty darn close to a house, you know, anyway. So far setbacks, it can be more than that, but that's certainly the minimum. Any more questions?
Well, if I read this correctly, it's got to be renewed every 3 years, right? Special.
That I saw that in there too.
I think that's a good idea. It just gives the county opportunity to police it a little bit. I understand what Juan was talking about if there are people who are minimally ambulatory, can't walk very far, and they're taking their meals with the kids, whatever, in the main house, they probably do want to be close by. And the only option I can think of for that would be there would have to be a proper or condition put on a special exception permit that they could be closer than the minimum that we're saying. But they would have to, then they could use the same well as septic. But in the event that something happened to those folks, then it could no longer be purposed as a dwelling, period. Be an office or a workshop, whatever you want to make it. But and if we find in the renewal process they violated that, hit them with a $2,500 fine or something. Make it stiff enough that they're not gonna try to go between the lines. I mean, is that an option to do something like that?
You ever heard of that, Michael?
You can certainly set, and essentially what it would be an expiration period for the use permit, which you can certainly set and require renewals. Usually I would advise you don't necessarily get into the relationship of whoever the occupants are. That, the use is what the use is, regardless of who's occupying it. Um, I'm on the fence about the wastewater. That may be something we want a little more information from the health department on.
What kind of, I think that if you get involved, force them, government gets involved. Force them to put a new well on a new septic tank in. I'm thinking for the best, let's say that you have a child with special needs or you have someone else. A well in a septic tank's a lot of money. I don't know who in this county polices this situation. I can get sold stuff, but you have another dwelling, another well, another septic tank where it ain't tied, to you, you're gonna want to rent. So I think if it's a true trying to help a loved one, you're gonna want them close, it's gonna probably be tied to you, probably be short term. I think a separate well and septic is gonna create a hardship and expense to where later on down the road, after this loved one is gone, it may be looked at as an opportunity to rent. And that's really what we're trying to stop. Dwellings and rent and stuff like that. You're looking at a well and septic tank, you're looking at 25 grand just to get your mother or your child where they feel comfortable. And if it can be tied onto your house, I know that if I had a special needs kid or a sick parent, which we all could, fortunate to have a parent still alive, I would want to close. And I wouldn't want a stranger on my light bill of water bill septic tank, so I wouldn't really want that after loved one passed. But if it was on its own separate entity, thoughts gonna cross people's minds and move around.
Well, we discussed it in the committee meeting. If they had the setbacks big enough, they could be divided and create, and had enough land, but it didn't violate the density requirements. They could set it up so that it'd be close enough they could take care of them, but also you could create another lot, took a notion or rent it down.
That's a good scenario. One I'm thinking about the guy living in a subdivision and has got special needs child that's only the low limitations. I've got a cousin that's handicapped and when you lose the pride and humility, anything you can gain by giving them some of that is a blessing to them. So I'm thinking somebody is actually needed. But there's people out there that'll take great advantage of this. But we gotta guard against that. But I don't want to, I personally don't want to hinder people that really do have a tough situation. It may not be long. And a well and septic. At the end of the day, we gotta do something about it though. So I'm not against what we're talking about, but I would just say, put yourself in someone's shoes that has a special needs child. To help them feel a little bit.
What would you suggest?
I wouldn't want to spend $25,000.
No, but I said, what would you suggest? 4 years, 3 years down the road that we can put in an ordinance that they can do with the house or the second dwelling. I mean, should we have some?
I think they need to come back to somebody and report every 3 years whether or not that loved one's still alive. That's what they're building it for that loved one. When that loved one's gone, we need to know what they're doing with it.
Well, should we require it at that time that they put a septic and well in?
I don't think so. I mean, you could have yourself, I know one man's got a tobacco barn that he fixed up for his grandkids and all to come in just to stay for the weekend. It's got electricity in it, doesn't have running water, doesn't have septic tank.
But he's not rented out either.
No, he's not renting out, but if he had running water and septic tank in it, he could. And it ain't occupied for like maybe 3 weekends a year, and it's beautiful. And it's on the same dwelling. It's a prime opportunity for him to make some.
All
I
right,
like the idea of them coming back, but I don't want to hinder somebody that,
Can you put it in this special exception permit that, if it's that case, loved one, whatever, put it in there. But if it ever gets to the point where it's sold or rented or whatever else, that loved one dies, you want to do something else with it, you got to come back before us. And at that point, it has to have a separate well and septic system.
something like that would be fine, but then we're still going in the direction of renting a second dwelling on the same property.
Uh,
no, it'd have to be, way it was set back, it'd almost have to be split, or could be
Yeah.
split.
Yeah, it would have to be split,
Split up.
but yeah.
I mean, I'm not trying to, it's already a can of worms, I don't want to open it up anymore, but I just,
We're trying to hold the worms in the can, that's the trouble.
I think that's in the wrong direction to do that. I mean, if it's an accessory, it needs to be an accessory. We have family cuts.
I don't think you're ever gonna make one rules gonna apply to
you
everybody.
know,
Right.
I'm just thinking of
But
Best way.
most of the time when the people come up here, they got legitimate issues. After the issues are resolved, we don't know what's happening with this parcel of property. But when they come up here and they speak, they'll have a loved one, a mother-in-law, a mother, a kid. You don't know what happens to them after they pass away in that other parcel. We help them out with what becomes of it.
the vast majority of them are parents that come to us through the years. Or family that's come to us for the parents through the years. Not all, it's been, but it can be a special exemption for it to be somebody other than parents, like the special needs child.
You know, we have been doing this for a while, and when people were putting mobile homes there, it wasn't as tight, I guess.
You can pull it out.
So you move.
If you got called or if the person passed away, you could move it. But now culture has started building homes and building a little bit bigger than mobile homes. And I think that's what we're trying to get in front of, not to hinder anybody from coming in there. But knowing what they would probably do with that unit after the situation passes is setting up for that. I'm in favor of the wellness center. I just think it ought to be its own separate entity.
I mean, even a modular home, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, comes in on wheels to spread them.
Yeah.
But even modular homes can be moved, they've done that before.
And it may be something we could, special exception to wellness center, but I think with the way culture is going and building these accessory dwellings, we kind of know where the end games will end up. And I think that's the direction we need to set, in my opinion.
Any more discussion? We tried to discuss every point there was. Day we had the meeting, David Michael.
For the basic
We
problem.
got another question coming up behind this one. Airbnbs, short-term rentals. You won't, I was talking to the guys today that working on the digester one set up out of Wisconsin. They're staying at Short Pump Motel. They'll be here came in November and they don't expect to leave before May. A long time. That hotel making a pretty good sum. If and when, I'm just thinking, this is the next thing coming up. So if you kind of have to see if this could help or is this gonna hurt? How I look at it. But that's the next thing the zoning committee's gonna have to look at as to what we want to do on that, because we've had requests on that. I've had 2 or 3 personal requests, want to know how we do B&Bs. Or if we even consider B&Bs. But, so that, I think it's, by me being hit on both sides, it's, you know, I can see everybody's points. But you know, it's kind of like comprehensive plan. You gotta look down the road a ways. And one thing about it, if it has a septic and a well, at the point in time when it's accepted, if the couple on the side decides to sell their home, move to a retirement center or retirement home, if they sold that home plus the little home 2 different times, they could get their $25,000 back. I'm just thinking that in the long run, you know, they can get the capital back. But if it's attached, you know, pretty much the same electricity coming out of the same meter, well, and a septic, do you think they would come back before us to do that? You know, that's the can of worms we're in.
That was the whole idea, was to set it up.
And
So
you,
it could be divided off as a separate house and lot, and then we don't care if they rent it or sell it, whatever they do with it. That was the whole theory behind it.
but I guess you,
Well, thing.
but I guess you could put a provision in there for special exemption for just those, and those at that point in time would have to stay at that thing. If they were hooked to the original, I mean, that one way to get around it. Those won't, you know, if they're gonna build it out there, you know, most of those is do it in the back door. They don't care about the money anyway. They're gonna do it.
But I was just wondering, couldn't they just add it to the house? You know, would that be cheaper? 'Cause everything's right there. Just add it right to the house if you wanna, you know, if you don't wanna pay the 20, you know, the well and septic. You just add it to the house.
You just lose the independence
Mhm.
of a separate.
Yeah.
It's a whole lot cheaper and easier.
Especially if you have the lot size for that.
A lot of talk has been about the setbacks and separation, but on the top of page 42, it says 16 feet.
That's what's in the thing now.
That's proposed changes.
This is not that's not a change. That's what's in there now.
Okay.
A lot of people want some separation. And the primary purpose clearly is and what we burden them with having to put in utilities and go through all this. And when you have family codes, I think we're, you know, we're kind of leading people in the wrong direction here, you know. If it's gonna be cut off, it's not an accessory.
I think at some point in time, it will be. I mean, I agree with the parents, you know, that's what the whole thing is. But after that, I think it's where the problem. It's an issue that we gotta set up for the future. And I have had some people ask me about Airbnb. I remember this planning commission talked about it probably 15 years ago. I don't know why, why it's where it's at now, but you know, that may be.
Well, I mean, the Airbnbs, a couple years ago, my wife and I went to Asheville for a weekend. And we stayed in, it was a little round building. And it was like, and it was in this lady's yard. She had 5 of them around her house, all within probably a 200-foot circle. And it was nice. Nice living room, bathroom, kitchenette, bedroom, big deck in the back. And that's what they were. They were rental property. And we were there for the weekend, and it wasn't any more expensive than going to a hotel. but you have your privacy. Problem is, on the back end, the very back one, she had somebody living there, looked like permanently. So how do you, I mean, how do you police that,
We got one Airbnb in it, right? Right there in the village.
I think it's old, it's supposedly has.
So when they take the power plant, and that guy lived there for about 5 months. And he was very lucky. He originally started off in a hotel up here inside the Hardee's. Then he was Chesterfield. Yeah, burning it. I'll stay in. Most time when you go stay in, you're staying around. Some of them, yeah. Yeah, like Sailor's Creek. I want to see around the gate stuff. Oh. Step on the dark side of the fence. You got one that's in a business, I think that would be the issue, it's got to be zoned or something for it.
But they,
It's in the right zone.
if they have to renew this thing every 3 years, what's that process? Are they just gonna come in and sign a form and go home, and that's gonna be the end of it? I mean, or what, or somebody gonna go visit the site? Have we thought that far ahead yet?
That is a great question with the lack of staffing that we have. Code enforcement will definitely be an issue. Because most people don't even remember when they even applied for it. There's some that I can probably choose much older than 3 years old. And unless someone complains about it, it doesn't come to our attention. Because at some point during all these transitions, there's no set master which everything keep up with in order to be able staff to be able to track around and find it. Right now we're utilizing the building official that if we do get a complaint while he's out doing inspections, if he has time, he swings over. So the purpose of coming to you guys and discussing the whole density part is to also alleviate some of the stress on the staff. We don't have a set process right now. That would be also something that the zoning committee could discuss and set up. Once we start doing that, we are working on slowly getting a master list on everything, subdivision, et cetera. It helps that if it does come to a timeline, we'll have to set up an Excel, something that pops up red or something, we can address it. And they can either come in, we take a look, and we can go inspect, if that's the choice you want to go, or they can reapply. It's really up to you guys, how you guys want to set the standard.
I mean, you can make all the rules you want, but nobody's gonna police it. They're worthless.
Exactly. And you.
And there again, it's kind of leads you to setting up for the future. If that family invests in a well and septic to build this accessory problem, the person lives there, and then at that time, if the distance is right and the setbacks, and they can actually cut it off, it does tend them to sell it, their money back.
I mean, that's one way,
Well,
one way of I look at it.
it served the purpose first.
It's kind of like the trailer you put there. You pay for it, put it there, when you take it away, you get a little bit. You don't get a whole lot for it, but you do get part of it back.
That's,
Can I bring up something that we have recently encountered with the county? In the process of hiring for these positions, a lot of them are from out of town and not local. So in the process of moving, they don't have a place to stay until their family can get situated. And that includes, taking their kids out of the current school, enrolling here. So it is a process for them to get moved. They don't have a place to stay. Currently, our interim county administrator, he's more towards Wood Lake area. I mean, granted, it's not that far away, but we are very limited on housing. That includes for teachers, for trying to get teachers to come here as well.
That's been an ongoing problem the last 20 years.
Right.
Yeah, I think this is all like a symptom of the county's strict splitting of land rules. They can't split land to make a house for somebody to live in, so they got to kind of find a workaround. And these are just some of the workarounds we're encountering. That's my opinion on it.
I'm thinking small lots when talking about this. I don't know why. That's just this last case that we had. The lot was 3 acres and 5 acres. That's what I'm thinking about. I've got a 5 acre lot I gave my child. Thinking about if I get old, I'm gonna go live with her. What if it ain't enough room? Do what we're talking about. I'm just thinking, 25 acres, that's nobody. You can build wherever you want, cut off whatever you want.
But at that time, you could do a family cut. You would be family.
What have you already done? Hey,
Family cuts are limited.
Or
what
limit.
if you're living on Dumfries? And you got a situation like this, and the county water, so we're just.
If you hook the county water and sewer, this would have no effect on it.
Yeah, I'm just.
So if
thinking
that's a septic,
small lot.
that's.
I'm not
Well,
totally.
they wouldn't be allowed there.
I'm just.
If it's a planned community, they wouldn't be allowed there.
If it was already density plus, it couldn't have happened. But if it was a density plus, you could put it in.
I see your point of thinking on down the road. I wasn't thinking like that. I was thinking about if you take a normal family today. Then paycheck to paycheck, and have a son get crippled or daughter get crippled. And they gotta make arrangements to their house or find a house they can afford. It thought it cost a mind to do something like this. And it's just a burden, the way I was thinking. But then again, things happen 25 years down the road. You have a bunch of rental properties on the 3 acre lot.
They wouldn't be on 3 acres. I know what the density, what size lots they went. Any more discussion, questions?
I think 3 years.
We'd like to have something to work with. That's the thing. We got to start somewhere, either going up, going down, or so we don't waste our time when we do come to have our meeting. Excuse me, go ahead.
Sorry. I think 3 years is a little short, creating a lot of work for staff and stuff. I think like probably at least 5 years, I would suggest. 3 is not very long.
You know, problem with extending that is that if somebody, if parent passes away and you do 5-year renewal, parent passes away in 2 years, then they just go ahead and start renting it. But then they're gonna be renting it for 3 years before you're ever gonna find out with them or catch up with them. And I mean, it's the way, it's funny, it's the courts are today. That established a precedent by letting them stay in for 3 years, nobody does anything about it.
Unless somebody complains or
It's not
something.
concerned, the quicker you get on it, the quicker you can keep it reeled in.
They would have it set up from the beginning to kind of deal with itself.
Somebody really needs it bad enough. They'll be grateful that they got it. They come up here every year for it if they needed to, if they really need
I
it.
think you're right about that.
And that could be a
And
special.
that could be, I mean, we're trying to hinder the evil. But there's good involved too that we need to be thinking about.
Why not?
And
We're trying to cover both of them.
Evil will take advantage of you. I'm tender hearted, so I'm thinking tender hearted.
So would they be able to
Might
come
need to
back?
back me a little bit and tell me,
Well, can you?
Come back
they've
on
got
special
some-
section?
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying, in some cases, certain cases, can they still come back for a special exception in that particular case by case?
Ask for one.
I mean, you could do it case by case, maybe, but then you kind of need a guideline.
Yeah, I'm saying put a guideline, but I'm saying if it didn't fit, so for instance, in this particular case, it wouldn't fit maybe in our regular guideline. Would they be able to come back and ask for a special
You're
exception?
never gonna,
Get everybody.
never gonna completely stop people from cutting corners. I mean, it's like a lock only keeps an honest person out.
Right.
You know,
you know,
Well, yeah, and that's kind of where I was going. You've got to come to get a special exception permit anyway. What, I mean, rather than having it absolutely required for well and septic, you put that as a condition, that's preferred, but or required except as provided, when we're making do it, to your point. I've got a crippled kid, they're gonna live there, however, I want them 20 feet from my front door. Okay, in that case, you do away with the separate well and septic. If it's a larger building, you're putting up something for your kids because they can't find somewhere else to live. I want to put them on my property. Whatever, then okay, then that needs to be set up where down the road, that's probably going to be sold, set off. Then that, in that case, it would be required a separate well and stuff.
Yeah, I think we put stipulations on it during special exception.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
But I think we need to also have the authority to levy a fine against them in case we catch them, they purposely go against those rules. Michael, is it possible to put a fine on somebody if we catch them breaking the rules? And can we have the flexibility to do each one independently?
So there's going to be limits to how much you can fine them, and I believe those are set by state statutes. And I'm off the top of my head, I'm not sure what those are. Usually, it's you're able to fine or cite them for each day is its own violation as well. So if they're not actually working to come into compliance, those that can stack up on them pretty quickly. But yeah, I mean, we had talked about this in the committee, at least the first time we met, whether or not, so you all don't currently restrict them by relationship to the owner of the property. And not a lot of places do, but some do, where you can have an accessory dwelling unit. It has to be occupied by a related family member. And we had talked about that, but the part of the challenge in doing that is that what happens when that person passes away or moves away? Does that mean they have to remove the accessory dwelling unit? And so that's maybe one of the reasons why you wouldn't want to do that, but it is an option.
You have to be, either dwelling have to be removed or repurposed. They'd have to prove that.
Well, there's a variety of purposes they can be used for. Always, they understand that up front. I don't have any problem with that.
What happened?
If they check it every 3 years
You're going to catch it up quickly.
and say it is for a parent child,
Well, what
and you build it,
think it also, it may not be a parent or child, it could be an aunt or an uncle
oh,
that had no children,
Right.
and this was their favorite
Yeah.
Got a lot of them.
cousin, whatever.
I don't have any cousins all living near me.
But I'm saying you gotta think about that too. I mean, that's part of it.
Look, again, I think that all kind of goes into, if you're gonna bring up a special exception permit, part of that has to be contingency of what happens, at the end. Where do you want to go with it? Does it become a garage? Is that your plan? I realize plans change, but no, well, they're here until they pass away, and then I'm gonna make me a workshop attached to it. Okay.
That's what I would do.
Yeah, well, I mean, in that case, fine. You hooked up, you got that, we're gonna check back in 3 years, you're in good shape.
I would want some renter living 30 feet from my back door.
No, I wouldn't either. But if your intention is, yeah, we'd like to have this, we're gonna invest this money and, hopefully they'll live another 10 years. But if they, whenever they pass, we want to get rid of it. Okay, well then when you need to have the land set up where it can be separated, sold off or whatever.
I mean, 40 feet separation between the two. I mean, 40 feet is not that far.
You look at down Dunn Street, those houses are not much more than 40 feet apart. Probably closer than that.
Some of them probably are.
I mean,
I think you ought to have the setbacks and able to split up, make it another lot or a well accepted. You gotta have one or the other in the equation. Because if they get to the time,
I agree with
if they get to the time where that family member can no longer live there,
You give an option.
and then they say, well, my aunt's not living here no more, we're gonna rent it out. But if you go rent it out, then you need to put a well septic in, but you've already got, the house is already placed where it meets the setbacks, that you could cut it off. Is that?
Well, that's what I was going.
Does that make it
You gotta
any
have a plan for.
Yeah, I mean,
down the
that's
road.
what you're saying. I mean, it could, as part of their renewals process, for the special exception or coming to planning to have it cut off as a separate lot, have to submit, the drain field permit and all that stuff and everything with the packet to prove they are going to put a drain field in. Well.
That would that serve the purpose of the family member for the short term? And then when that time comes, the owners have got to make a decision. Do they want a workshop? Or do they want to,
Possibly sell it or rent it.
they need to have one or the other there. At
Exactly.
least, they can't put it right next to the house and then 10 years we require them to have a well and septic, but then they don't have room to do it. So you kind of got to have one or the other. You got to have setbacks where they got room for well and septic.
I think that's fair.
Well, I think if you're gonna do something like that, then they should go ahead and have the property perfect.
That's what I was
When
going
they get ready to do that, and that way you know they can fit it.
They can put it
Have
on.
it all up for
These days, you put a alternative system anywhere.
Yeah, but it's ultra expensive.
Yeah, they get off expensive, you're right. But I think if they have a,
Utilities to start with, I agree that you're really heading in the direction of it, for sure being used as, rental property or so.
But you can't move it once you build it. You gotta have one or the other. I like the idea of going and have it perked, have a well and something laid out. And then your property lines match that. And, you deal with your family. And then when the time comes, you need to,
I think they should have a perk site anyway, because then they could come back later. If he didn't, they could possibly come back later and say, you want me to cut this thing off and make another, lot out of it, but it won't work.
That's what I'm
Can't get a
thinking.
perk site.
Yeah.
But they have to have that up front. That'll, at least they can create that independent situation later if they needed to.
That's probably not. Situation at the time.
Only on non-movable property, well, structures.
yeah, we're wrong.
Good. I mean,
And we don't know how many mobile homes have been set until there right now.
that's true too.
It may slow down the process of construction and so forth.
And the owners may see that in writing. And maybe looking to the future too, and say, well, we're gonna do it that way from the get-go. So it gives them an option too. I think it ought to be set up one way or the other.
I like
And
that.
be,
That's
move to the future.
So you saying let them use share a well and septic as long as it's dependent parent?
If it's truly a family emergency, situation, and they need to build this accessory dwelling, and it's truly a family, let them do it. But let them know too, when that situation ends, and they don't want to use it for a shop, they don't want to use it for man cave, and they possibly about to rent it or use it, it needs to have its own well accepted.
So during the special exception permit process, and they're gonna apply for that, they're gonna explain they're gonna use share well and septic. They're gonna keep at least double the minimum setback in between them. And they're gonna have to submit a drain field site or a health department.
I like the perk test. I think that's at least have that option there.
Because you can dig a well almost anywhere if you go deep enough.
What do you think?
What do you think?
You raised your
That-
hand?
that work?
You got a question? Oh,
No.
comment?
To kind of help with the staff and the special exceptions that people will be applying for, I've been working with the circuit court clerk that every special exception, starting from the previous month for the wedding venue, will be recorded with the clerk's office that will be attached as an exhibit or an attachment to the deed. So if you guys do want to set up, let's say someone comes before you, say, I'm gonna use this for whomever, I don't care. And you guys say, okay, it expires at this time, that will go into record. So that is a way to kind of help keep track of. And let me tell you, If we don't have the staff for it, the banks will surely point it out and say, "No." That's been the experience anyway.
I think
So
that's
far.
good. Have that on that. That's, yeah. Got to keep people on them.
It's good.
It's record, permanent record.
That's right.
Well, from what I hear, let's go back to our committee. Michael, write it out, the committee, go over it, is set it up that family member can hook to a well and septic. But upon getting that special event, if it ceases to be that, up front, the option is, if you're gonna use it for something other than yourself, it needs to be, well, it's start out, it has to be at least 40 feet or whatever setback.
Or double the setback
setback.
where the zoning is.
But then they know up front that it will be deeded, and also will, if it changes to be changed in hand, it has to have a septic, a perk site, and its own well.
Unless you have-
That's how you said from the get-go.
Yeah.
When they start building this, you decide, they go and show us a firm site.
But if your contingent plan is your man cave, you won't have to have that double setback, right? Right. Is that what you?
Well,
No, I think you gotta have. I think you gotta-
Okay, all right.
I'm just making sure that they don't sideline setback.
Yeah, I'm just figuring, make sure I hear.
I think when it comes to making a decision, it's your decision. It's your decision right now. You're going to do it one way or the other way, you're coming back in 3, 4, 5. Sit there around, either you dig your well in your septic and have a parcel to sell when your loved ones pass, or use it like a temporary thing, like it will make it.
Could we require when they apply for the special exception permit that they bring a drawing or a sketch of those separate lot with the drain field site on and say that, we're not making you do that right now. But when your parent passes away, you're gonna have to go to this option. Or just completely remove the accessory dwelling as a dwelling.
I think so, because you're gonna have to have that, so you put your second in the right place.
Yeah.
Not saying you can't have it, you just gotta make sure you can put it in the right
Make
place.
sure
where
it
you can-
fits.
You can fit your
Right.
drains to.
Well, if they know they want to rent it or sell it down the road, I don't see why they don't do a family cut 5 years and do what you want.
They could,
Well, but-
that's an option.
Policy on
But
family cuts.
they may not want to, at this point.
They may not want
I-
to split it.
Right, I mean, I may be thinking, look, my parents are here. Once they're gone, I don't want to do anything. Times change, things change down the road. As long as you've got it set up from the get-go where, I had no idea I was gonna do that at the time, but now it's been 5, 10 years. It makes sense, just go ahead and split it off. We've got all the paperwork done. We know that it works. We know that it sets, so it's kind of planning by default.
You understand all this, Mike? Fair as mud.
I think so.
I think it did bring up in the meeting, our meeting, we're thinking parents. But it's turned into where it's the other way around.
That's right.
So the kids are downsizing. No, the parents are downsizing.
Downsizing. The
The
kids,
kids are coming in and living.
That's right.
So then it stays in the family, stays in the,
However,
so you're really not hurting that.
The zoning committee also discussed the size of the dwelling that can be built as well.
yeah. 50%.
So we're saying when you want to do the accessory to the main, the accessory should be so that it could be split off later if the situation changes?
They need to know that by having a plat, it could be. You don't have a plat, you're stuck with it. It can't be split.
They have a plat, but it's not splittable under normal conditions and what
No, under normal conditions, I guess they wouldn't get the permit.
for for the detached dwelling.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's just good planning to say in the future, if this had, people don't live forever. And, you know, if the parents are elderly enough, or you have a family member elderly enough that somebody has to take care of them, you know, they're not gonna be around a whole lot long. I'm trying to sound ugly about it, but it's a fact. And so if they bring in a lot laid out, showing the proposed dwelling site and a greenfield site, then we can say, when we know that it fits, it's appealing and all, okay, that's a good plan for the future. And for the time being, as long as your parent or dependent family member is around, you can tie in and use the well and septic. But in the event they're passed away, you either got to repurpose that building or you got to create this lot and you can do whatever you want to with it. Yeah.
Like,
There are all kinds of situations where there can be one person, for a fairly extended period of time. And, I mean, situation where it's not a couple to start with. If a person is deceased already, or whether they're divorced, and where they want the family member or maybe grandmother close by to help care for grandkids. So there's all kinds of situations where it, you know, 10, 15, 20 years is possible.
Well, if I spent 30, 50, $80,000 on a place for one of my parents to live with my parents deceased, but a dependent family member, I wouldn't want to tear it down or turn it into a workshop or a playhouse. I want to be able to get some of my investment back in the future. And so it only makes sense to have it set up where they could cut it off and either rent it or sell it. And rental property is a big thing these days. I mean, I get a thing in the mail probably twice a month. People want to buy my house to rent it out. I mean, that's a big deal. My first cousin's married to a guy, and that's all he does. He buys property and rents it out. He's probably got 40 or 50 rental houses right now.
You know, a lot of times here in the past, we've let folks tap onto the septic system. You know, if they go that route, we need to get some certification from the health department that septic system can do it. I mean, we tell them, hey, go on, do what you gotta do, but we don't know if it's size appropriately to add 2 more bedrooms, and so I think you ought to start requiring that.
Yeah, and I absolutely agree with that.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times they're maxed out anyway,
They could be.
you know, so yeah.
I'm not even having to add a line or two.
But we never know that sitting here.
right, you need to get to
Yeah.
step one.
Yeah.
We do that as part of the approval process either way, that if they're going to share the drain field, we need something from the health department saying they work
And
for their protection as much as ours.
they get the first side to do that too.
We do it all. the same
Yeah,
time.
that's what I'm saying.
So just a heads up with the health department on that, we've already had pushback with stuff like that. They have to get approval from the board before they can review it to approve or deny it. So, I mean, we just, with the Hendon one, he had put in an application for bathrooms for the facilities, and they immediately asked, hey, where's the special exception? At the time, we didn't have to sign to approve, but he was like, I'm not gonna even look at this unless I have.
So we have to put in a special exception.
So, yeah. as a-
We accept it as a condition.
If approved by the health department for its.
Right.
Well, I know for the last 40 years, Amelia has required 100% reserve area. When they do a septic permit, you gotta have 100% reserve. So they can add more lines if they need to, but I mean, I don't know that we can dictate that, but I know they should have reserve. If the house is less than 40 years old, they should have a reserve drain field area already established. I'm saying,
You don't want to back it up.
no. They don't. But
Well, Mr. Chairman, it looks like this is going to go back to Michael and the zoning board to clean it up. So I don't think us having a joint meeting in April would be very beneficial. I won't even pursue that with.
fine with me. That's one reason I wanted to bring it out tonight. Get as much discussion as possible. So we meet again
Okay.
May the 9th or 11th.
You'll be in there.
Yeah, it's in May. I think it's May the 9th.
Unless you want us to go ahead, and set something off next month, I need to do that.
Zoning members, what do you want to do? Wait till, I think it's Friday, May the 9th, or try to do something in April? The reason we backed it off in May, we thought we'd be having a joint in April with the board of supervisors to public hearing.
The main goal of the board of supervisors to send the planning commission was to discuss and come up with a recommendation of accessory dwellings in planning communities. If that part is done, I'm not a question for Michael. Michael, would this be a two-part
Yeah, I think so.
deal? And we could probably do that part. And then the other part where all the work is at, we can push that off. But I think the board is really waiting to hear to make a change on
Special.
in the planning uses.
Yeah, it sounds like there, could be a first pass to deal with the density and the lot size. That would, I think, in a lot of ways address some of the concerns and even putting in, I think I also mentioned in here, let's see, having a standard and some of what y'all are discussing actually may be the way to deal with it. Instead of having a objective regulation, you can put in there a standard that, there's a criteria or a finding that you review the application by. For instance, indicating that ADUs are not generally an appropriate use within a traditional residential subdivision. And that wouldn't outright, let's say they have a lot that's 2 times the minimum lot size and they meet the density, but they're still in a subdivision. You could evaluate whether or not that's acceptable by that standard once you put it in the code. So that's maybe a way to address some of these things anyway. But yeah, if you want to split the process up and deal with the lower hanging fruit right now that deal with the principal concern about being in subdivisions and then address some of the other stuff later, that's certainly a fine way to go about it too.
Did you have a question, sir? You stood up. Okay.
That's about something else. So you want to wrap up this?
Let's try wrapping this up, then we'll get that. I'll do you right next. Is that, think you how you want to do it, split it? And then we'll just keep our May meeting and we'll have to have a joint for that.
Great idea. Simplified is always best.
Please split the two processes.
Split the two processes. Take care of the first one. We can have a public hearing, join if you want on that
In April.
in April. And then in May, by that time, we'll have this rewritten and the zoning committee will go over it in May and then bring it back to this board, May meeting. And then at that time, you go June or July, whatever.
I think that'll work. Let's plan on a joint meeting in April, like you said,
Or for that.
for the public hearing on the first part. And then we'll take care of the immediate objective.
And that way we'll have time to think what everybody said tonight and see if we can head in the right direction. Is that understanding fine with everybody else? All right, that's how we'll leave it then. All right, I'll let you speak now, sir. I'm sorry, just state your name and address. That's all we need.
Paul White, Merlin Way, in the district number 5. So we're off Bevels Bridge Road at the Merlin Meadow subdivision. So just wanted to let y'all know there's another worm out there we need to get in the can.
Oh, boy.
It really relates to, and Michael and I were talking a little bit about it, the change over time. And basically when the subdivision was developed, our accessory structures were all detached garages, which is just a big outbuilding that people put different things in, cars, boats, airplanes, whatever, right? And so that changes over time. So anyways, everything's been fine for 20 years. But in the last property reassessment, the accessory structures were changed to be called hangar, which unfortunately in the residential mortgage market, that term obviously has a commercial use because a hangar is on an airport, which is where business is operated and all sorts of stuff. And so to obtain a standard residential mortgage that meets secondary investor qualifications, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, which is basically 99% of all home mortgages, right? The lender has to get special approval. Well, one, they have to get approval from the county that, yeah, this is residential property, it's not commercial. But then they've got to go to the secondary investor that's going to purchase those mortgages and get approval or an exception. And they're basically saying, in today's world, we don't even bother with that. It's just too much headache and there's not certainty that you're going to get approval. Because that secondary investor is going to sell it to somebody else down the road, potentially. So at any rate, with that change in the accessory structure type from detached garage, which is the standard across the country for all subdivisions that have a big grass field, which you could fly an aircraft off if you wanted to. That's the standard, detached garage. So anyway, so Amelia has changed that now. And so we've got a subdivision that basically when the owners go to sell their property, future buyers may not be able to get a standard loan.
Who changed that terminology?
The Commissioner of Revenue's office.
When Wampler Ames, the reassessment company, the reassessment the last time, that's when they started labeling them as hangars.
And there's buildings there's like 9 lots in the subdivision. 3 of them are owned by people that are close to 80. They don't even have any aircraft in two of those buildings. It's just a big open workshop. So, so we need some help on being able to resolve the issue. You don't want to have a subdivision that can't get a loan in Amelia County. That's not, good for anybody, right? So anyways, just wanted to make you aware of that, and hopefully, and I got a letter from one of the rankers that was willing to put something in writing for us. If you guys want a copy of that. He should explain. They can boil up if you live, so.
So if somebody has a detached garage, the county is now calling that a hangar?
Well, in our subdivision, yes,
In your subdivision?
yes,
Okay, just your subdivision.
that I'm aware of. There's buildings over time that have been on farms that have had aircraft in them, and nobody called them a hangar, so it's just unique to the subdivision. So,
Problem is, Mr. Revenue's not under our jurisdiction.
well, if you think about it from a total government perspective, the different parts of government signs definitions and says, hey, this is commercial property, this is residential property. Now we got this confusion that we're not on the same page. And then you hinder the actual residents and you lower the value of the property for the county, which is not a good idea. I can guarantee if all those people said, hey, let's come build it up out here at this subdivision, but we're going to change the rules on you so you can't get a mortgage when you go to resell, nobody would have came, So.
Do you have a feeling that most people out there are storing more in those buildings than airplanes? I mean, are they
Have you ever seen a space that is empty all the time? Everything gets sucked in. So I think there's only one of them that probably is like mostly empty other than an aircraft.
Okay.
There's like most everybody has project cars, it's kind of like if I got my car in the garage and I'm working on it, that doesn't mean I have a repair shop, that's commercial, right? So it's just knowing how we use these terms and keep them in the lane so the outside world, particularly in this case, residential mortgage financing can work with us. So it doesn't really change anything for the county. It's just a terminology change.
And some of the hangars totally enclosed.
All of
No,
them.
no, no.
You wouldn't know. I mean, it's just a building. It's just,
Yeah.
it looks like a big garage.
It's just got a really wide door on the front, roll up doors, so you can tell the difference.
In some cases, it's not even, they're fold up doors like a barn,
Right.
Anyway, just want to make you guys aware of that. Hopefully you guys can think about how we can solve this problem. I think the Commission of Revenue could easily solve the problem, but nobody in the subdivision is from and born in Amelia, so we don't really make much progress.
Appreciate you bringing it to our attention. We'll see what we can do. Thank you for coming. All right. We got that part covered. You want to speak on the fees or Clarence want to speak?
I can speak on the fees, but Clarence, we can discuss the budget and everything. That's fine with you. Don't mess-
Fine with me. I think that's about the fourth page or fifth page from the back. Where is it up in there?
Like that page right there on the screen.
Oh, it's like, it's toward the front. Right behind the special exception. That's essentially it.
All right. I've seen it.
Right.
Yeah. 21. Okay.
All right. So there's been some thought process in this. It's not just, hey, we need more money, but in a sense, with everyone coming more recently with rezonings, subdivision requests, special exception requests, etc., we're just trying to prepare for if public hearings become a more consistent thing. Part of this will help with that as far as if it ever gets kicked back. Currently, we would not be able to, it would not cover the cost for the public hearing with the advertisement fees, et cetera, as well as the time it takes for whoever comes into the community development office for the zoning enforcement to go out and inspect the property, the fuel cost, insurance. These fees will also help pay for some of the education for planning commission members, and it'll encourage new ones to come in and be educated on making the right decision in these cases. So I have compared and looked at several different counties, as you can see listed on here, and it's spread throughout the state of Virginia. And some fees we didn't have. So this is just a suggestion. I am very open to you guys and your knowledge on what is a better fee to apply here. But currently, we are on the lower end of all the other counties with most of our fees, and it doesn't cover the time that staff takes to take care of everything.
What is a text amendment ordinance?
We just have one with the tow lot. So when it's for a use not provided for, they would ask for a text amendment to that. So in addition to the special exception permit, that would have been added on. The fee for that would have been added on. And it would become a permanent thing into that zoning.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's just a lot of the other counties do actually utilize that fee. And in this case, it would be beneficial. Because again, it potential for even more advertisements and everything, because let's say they approve this and they want it kicked back to the planning commission for you guys to approve something else.
Isn't this something that would usually go directly to the supervisors?
It would, but I'm getting your input because I'm not a planner nor am I a community development person. We do not have someone in that office. And the biggest take back is you guys have been experienced this a lot more than I have. So I'm just seeking your wisdom and guidance.
I mean, a lot of these new proposed values or prices are still some of them are still down, still kind of on the lower end of the average.
I was being conservative on the proposed fees for us, yes. Because I know sometimes, I mean, we actually did go up a little bit when Brady was here, but we didn't want to make that drastic jump and have it be such a shock to the citizens. So this is kind of the next step as well. It's a progressive fee increase.
Yeah, actually, and I went over this a couple weeks ago. She showed it to me earlier. So I'd have a little bit of knowledge. I came before y'all, but it just pretty much gets us certainly average, a little bit above average. See, we've got some pretty big counties there. And we're still pretty cheap compared to some. How does this affect y'all? Mr. Bonner,
What do you mean?
how would it affect realtors at all? Just people
Yeah.
coming for here, I mean,
I'd like to see Nottaway,
I remember some counties don't have stuff.
Cumberland. That's still relevant information if they're
Yeah.
not charging anything.
So I wasn't able to easily access them at that time and I am limited on the research I can do. But I was hoping to get with the planner that attended the comprehensive plan to discuss what fees they have as well.
Yeah, all the surroundings like Cumberland. and
Cumberland was very, very much on the low side. They're kind of right where we are now. Same with,
Not a way.
Farmville area.
Prince Edward.
Thank you.
Prince Edward.
Sorry.
Yeah.
But this is, like I said, this is just the time I was able to put into, I looked at several all around us and kind of looked outside of that area as well to see what the trending nature is of counties that are kind of butting up to places like Richmond that's gonna see that boom soon. And we have definitely had several inquiries, probably about 10 a day for subdivisions or special exceptions for family compounds or second dwelling units or ADUs. So it's gonna be
I'd get it.
More frequent.
I'd get as many comps from those surrounding counties as you can.
Oh, absolutely.
And then we'll present it at our next workshop, the board supervisor workshop.
Okay.
It's kind of,
But are you guys okay with
Mhm.
what it's being shown currently so far? Any other suggestions other than the next door neighbors?
Well, it gives you where you're at now, where you need to go. Maybe not exactly where you need to go, but heading in the right direction.
It's a stepping stone, correct?
Yeah.
The one thing I did make the same is the conditional rezoning and the rezoning. Ours is currently different, and the reason why I kind of want to make that the same flat fee is because several times that I've researched in the past, someone would come up here with just a rezoning, but ends up turning into a conditional rezoning. But you can't go back and say, well, because we decided it's a conditional rezoning, or we're gonna add this, you know? So this kind of eliminates that possibility.
Okay, anybody have any other comments for Ashley to look into before we move on to the next item?
Yeah, I think probably in all your spare time, probably you ought to start compiling some information from other areas about Airbnb stuff. I think that's pretty soon, we probably need to start looking at that now.
Well, I'm sure that Michael has experience with short-term rental policies and everything in other counties that we can work with at the next zoning.
Yeah, I think we're going to have to address that sooner or later. Might as well make it sooner.
Exactly, because again, that's coming out here and with the population, we have a lot of venues and stuff that are happening, coming up, and no one really has a place to stay, so, yep.
Well, the one-
Agenda for the board meeting in April.
The joint one? Or you talking
Our regular,
regular? Okay.
I mean, let's put that on the agenda. and
Which-
let-
The fee?
Airbnb.
Airbnb.
And get a feel of what the supervisor.
Okay.
Help us make a decision, 'cause I
Oh, yeah.
don't know where they're at on this, but should it start, we're all, get all the opinion.
I think if you close up the Chesterfield or Richmond, there's more venues opening up out here, I think. If it's gonna have plantation, just got down on 38, I mean, I think it's coming. I think you need to get prepared for it and go.
Michael, you had something to say?
Yeah, I would tell you the one thing to be aware of is that not this last General Assembly session, but last year there's a statute change where you cannot, a locality cannot prohibit a homeowner from Airbnb their own house dwelling. So they could rent out their house, the entirety of their house, or rent out a bedroom. So there's at least one piece of that that you can't prohibit. And you can't
Nice to know.
require a special exception or use permit for that either. But there's a few things that y'all may want to consider.
All right.
But generally, in Powhatan, our contiguous counties, most of these are right much, some of them crooked.
What's the population of some of those compared to ours though?
Twice.
Here in Denver, also has Pittsburgh is a adjoining thing. We don't have any cities adjoining us out here.
Oh, yeah.
It makes a difference.
It's usually.
Let Clarence go ahead. Bring that up. If he's online.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Can you hear me okay this evening?
Yeah, glad to have you this evening.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. You ready for the budget update? Is that what you want now, sir?
Yes, sir.
Okay, on behalf of the staff and the Board of Supervisors, we really appreciate the work of the Planning Committee and also the Planning Commission for hearing out the CIP projects. It's a vital part of the process that's going to the board. The staff did take your recommendations to the board at its last budget work session. And so far, the board has had 2 work sessions. They've had one to firm up the revenues and also one to start drilling down on the expenditures. And then the CIP priorities that you sent to them have been just preliminarily reviewed by the board right now. And of course, we're still in the process right now when no decisions have been made on what actual capital expenditures that the board will approve. But as I said, Mr. Chairman, we have finished calculating the revenues for the year. The expenditures are being wrapped up now. We expect to have those finished tomorrow. And then we'll have the first chance to start comparing the revenues to the expenditures tomorrow afternoon. And we'll start the actual balancing act of what the budget will look like going to the Board of Supervisors. And then I do expect that the budget will be presented to the board as early as late next week. And if not, then certainly by the second week of April. And then the last 2 parts of the process would be for the board to debate the budget. They would set their public hearing and then make a final approval on the budget sometime around early May would be the timeline that we're looking at. So again, in short, we're really deep in the budget process. We're on the home stretch right now, and it'll be on the board's desk within 1 to 2 weeks for them to start their decision-making process.
Any questions for Clarence? Glad to see we're ahead of time on budget. Just-
Somebody's leaving in a couple of weeks.
I know.
That's
Appreciate
right.
all you've done.
Yes, sir, they put a lot of work into it.
I appreciate everything y'all have done. It certainly, it's been helpful. And I guess I was talking to you or something that said the last couple of audits have gone really well. So that's certainly a plus for the county and plus for all the citizens of the county. So I appreciate everything you've done. We'll miss you, but best of luck.
Yes, sir.
Thanks
Thank
for
you,
everything
Mr.
you've
Chairman.
done while you've been here.
Hey, I appreciate it. I've enjoyed working with Amelia County. It's been a pleasure and a highlight of my career. I've made many friendships, and I commend the service of a lot of the planning commissioners. You have a lot of experience sitting at that table, and it is an important part of the recommendations that make their way to the Board of Supervisors. And I do thank you for your service, and it's been my pleasure, Mr. Chairman, to serve Amelia County.
Thank you. All right, comprehensive plan, let's see, last week, should be in your packet. Lauren stated that's the most responses we've had, they've ever had. And
509.
I've heard that. And but certainly look over it. I don't think it was a whole lot of surprises came out of it. What's the age was like from 35 to 64 where most responses come in. But nothing really jumped out that surprised me going over it. I guess majority of the responses actually came from the center of the county. It was broken down into voting districts, one the memorial building and one the firehouse. And that's where majority of the responses came in. So the outlying areas, we didn't quite get according to that as far as responses coming in. So most maybe that's probably where most of the people are. Yeah, in those two areas. But certainly look over it. If you have any questions, we will meet again. Is that the 14th of April, 11th of April? Is it a Friday or Monday? Or it's a Tuesday.
Should be a Tuesday. April.
I think it's the 12th, isn't it?
12th is Saturday.
Huh?
I got,
12th is a Saturday.
I got the 24th as a comp plan meeting.
24?
Correct.
It's the end of the-
Oh,
I
yeah,
got Thursday, I got the 24th.
that's probably right.
We only did it Tuesday this past month because it's when the Michael did.
Yeah, that's right. So it's the 24th. So if you have any comments one way or the other, or you want to come to the meeting, you're certainly welcome. I'm sure we'll go over a little bit of this and get what the next area we're covering, but it's going over piece by piece and working that way. The only other thing, I've heard up to 400 homes possibly going in. They set in on a comprehensive plan, that company. And cornered me afterwards, they won't speak to me. Tell me they spoken to the superintendent of school, part of board of supervisors, and they're going around trying to speak at any groups or any questions about it. It is off of Amelia Avenue and 681. Kind of fits in the comprehensive plan if you look on the map in that brochure. But I still got mixed feelings on it. It's kind of split up 5 different areas, the tract of land, because of the way the terrain is. But putting 80 houses in one hole was kind of, but they did state that, according to regs now, they could put a lot denser than they're anticipating, which is certainly a plus. But it was kind of going to be I think they said an 8-year project. I don't know if they built 400 homes in 8 year people, but I guess you can. But So I have some questions, but if you would like to talk to them, just let me know. I do have a card and I can give you the address and the phone number. And they said they'd be willing to speak to this whole group, one individual if you'd want to. But there's still got debate out there trying to decide what to do. But the homes, they were roughly 300 to 400,000, but you put that time 400 homes, that's a lot of money in the long run.
What size lots are they talking about?
I think that piece of property is only 89 acres, I think.
No,
It's bigger now?
multiple lots.
it's
Huh?
200
Oh, they
something.
bought, I knew what they bought, 89 from one guy.
It's
Okay.
3 tracts of
Oh, yeah,
property.
3 tracts.
They said the density be 1.69. I think, in other words, it's 2.5 homes to an acre.
But they're gonna be, they'll have water and sewer available, so you go down.
Water and sewer, they could come smaller than that, but it's water and sewer. See, it's just this side of the sewer plant.
Right.
The question came up, I said, how about the water? They said that's a good question. We would, I think it's 2 wells presently dug, but are not attached to the system. And if they do attach them, it would be enough water. My other concern is if you had to empty the water tower, where you get enough water to control all them things when you have to inspect it. Because that's another expense if you have to put another water tower.
I know there's a hydrant on 681 up in front of that property.
Yeah.
In front of Bobby Walker property.
It'd be 2 roads in, one off of Amelia Avenue and one off of 681. They were, as a proffer, I guess you say, gonna give a section of it to the county or recreational type area. So it's some pluses to it, but some minuses to it too.
They already have their own water.
What was the density you said?
I think it said 1.69, which worked out to about 2.5 houses per acre.
There'll be a lot of extra traffic at the flashing lights too.
Yeah, I asked them about that and they said, well, they'd have to go to VDOT. But they said VDOT's kind of hard to work with sometime about putting a light because they don't spend the money.
I bet VDOT's gonna make a little light there.
At 360 is considered a throughfare, something about it, the way it's characterized, or classified now. And that would have to be changed to get a light, something about a light.
Get a bigger turning lane.
So I don't know. I told them I used to drive a school bus across there when I was 16. That was the worst intersection I ever went across, but they did cut the banks since then because they had a lot of accidents, but they cut the banks a whole lot back from the initial. And so.
When you were 16, that's when they were building.
Just about. Hadn't been there long because I remember the old one. But if you'd like to hear him, just let me know and I can give you all the information. He'd love to talk to you.
They'll also be attending, Todd Robinson's town hall, April 12th at 5 p.m. out in Hanford. I know it's out in there.
And I think you're also doing Morris's, Benji's.
His will be
I think that's what
the following Saturday.
I think that's what they told me. So if you'd like to go there, but just be aware, I'm sure they aren't the only ones. I thought about it later, I should have asked them what the heck they're doing out here to start with, but this seems to be a pretty big operation. I mean, they do it from start to finish. They would sell a lot in there to another developer, but that developer would have to build a house very similar to what they're recommending for that pod. No, but I didn't see any, what house it looked like, anything like that. So they were still working on that. I don't.
Well, the developer architectural review committee.
Well, they have to, in some of the meetings, they said they are very willing to work with us on what our ideas.
They did say they had went around the courthouse and got an idea of what type of homes were in the courthouse now. They wanted to keep them very consistent to that type of setting, since it's so close to the courthouse. So that would be. I have nothing, nothing else that I know of. Anyone else have anything I'd like to bring up?
This is the updated future land use.
Huh?
This is the updated future land use map. We had a
It's not the updated one. I have since got one from Lauren that actually goes consistent with the tax maps. I just have not sent that out because I haven't reviewed it yet.
That's a rough copy. We're still working on that. But that's kind of a rough copy from the old one. Any other questions, comments? But if you want to come to the meetings, you're certainly welcome. If you have comments, give them to someone on the committee and we'll certainly bring them out.
Publicly advertised, so all the members can show if they wanted to.
Oh, yeah. And we do have guests show up. I haven't had too many that I've let speak. But not too many of them said anything one way or the other, or looked like they were aroused. So at least I think we've got some counties, but I think we've got more people outside this county looking into this county, these videos, than we know about.
We do have other planners and members that have been attending, so that way we can kind of work with each other to complement our comprehensive.
Yeah, it's the last comp plan we had from Chesterfield, 2 from Chesterfield, 1 from Nottaway. And Michael and them have a group from Chesterfield that 2 could speak to it.
Yeah.
So we've had some on there that gave us some highlights.
There were 6 from Chester.
6 from Chesterfield,
Yeah. And 3 of them spoke.
3 of them spoke. So we're trying to find out what they failed at that we might not fail at.
Or what they did well that we can.
Yeah.
Both ways.
it was really beneficial having there.
Yeah, and we sent them out, every meeting. They are, welcome to come in. They're invited for all our meetings, so if they can set in, it's fine. So, and should I,
It's probably the most helpful.
yeah. And of course, we do have a new county administrator coming in. And we do have somebody's taking Brady's job coming in.
He will be meeting
In
today.
May. He's coming out of Bedford area or Lynchburg area. I was lucky enough to sit in on the interview. Seemed like a very knowledgeable young man. He's not as dynamic as Brady, but I think he will be as fair as possible. And I was pretty well pleased the way the interview went and all his comments. He was not, I got the thing, the inkling that where he is now, they're doing a lot of things that he does not feel is the right way to do things. So, and he was more inclined for how we were trying to do the comp plan and develop to keep Chesterfield off our back. So I'm very interested in him. His name is Alex. Is that Alex? Austin. Yeah, Austin. That's all I have. Sorry to run later than we did, but at least we had a great discussion. The zoning committee will have something to work with. Adjourn. No one gave me a motion. I guess I should ask for one.
So moved.